name of Pancho Villa came and drove them out. And they went stayed in El Paso for several years, and then her father's family went back because they had, and the houses were not destroyed, but there were fewer people there, so there were more houses available for the people that returned. And they had a family, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 people. The oldest of which was Pearl. She was born in Cliff Ranch rather than, she was born even before they had settled Colonia Juarez. But they had problems with the Indians there. That's the third time they had problems with the Indians. And then the next child was Miles Romney, so he would have been the fourth Miles. But he grew to be 22 years old, and just like his grandfather, Miles Park Romney fell off the roof of the St. George Temple and died, and Miles Romney fell off a construction roof.
Really?
And so when I saw Jenny up on the roof of her house, my heart sort of stopped. You know? I'm not good with heights. I need to go up on top of this house and see why the chimney's leaking. But I'm not going to do it.
When I did my Eagle project, Miles Biddulph fell off the roof of my my latrine, and then I was re-roofing.
Yeah, so there's something about the name Miles. That's one of the reasons we didn't name any of our kids Miles.
Yeah, that's right.
Then there was an Edna, and then I don't know a whole lot about her except that when that she had a daughter named Audrey that went to Stanford and lived in Santa Rosa, and I took you and Jenny to go visit Aunt Edna.
Okay.
And Audrey was there, and you said you were interested in Stanford.
Oh, okay.
She was telling you a few things about that. The next one was Florence, who lived in Shreveport, Louisiana. And she married a Jewish man by the name of Isidore Lieber, who was very rich. And whenever he came to New York on business, we would go in to the Waldorf Astoria where they stayed. And I remember when I graduated from high school, I got a $100 bill from Aunt Florence and Uncle Izzy.
That's a lot of money back in those days.
Yes, it was. Then the next one was Gordon Romney. Gordon sort of took over the operations in Colonia Juarez, but he lived in El Paso, and he raised 3 daughters and a son. The son is named Gordy. And Gordy is still working. He's a year younger than I am. So, but he's doing some. Well, at one time he was in charge of all of the church's data processing operations, but now he's off doing some other things and lives in San Diego. Then my mother was the next in line, and when she graduated from the high school there in Colonia Juarez, she ended up 1 year teaching school, and then she went to BYU. And when she was at BYU, she got a degree in English, and she ended up being the vice president of the senior class at BYU.
Do you remember your grandmother, Frances Turley?
No. Just vaguely, because we would when we went out to visit, she was living in El Paso with Uncle Gordon, I believe, at that time, or Uncle Keith. Uncle Keith is the last of the children, and he lived in Las Cruces.
I remember him.
And he's married to Ruth Miranda Call.
Right. So the Calls and the Romneys met through him. Yeah.
Yes.
I played tennis with Uncle Keith
Yes.
at 6 in the morning in Las Cruces. So I lost.
And Aunt Marguerite has a son named John Piper, who had been doing some family research, but it didn't get into Family Search. So I found him on Facebook, and I asked him, can you please put down all your information in Family Search, because there are no children shown in Family Search for the Pipers or for the Keith Romneys.
Okay.
And so then I sent off an email, which I haven't heard back from, to Carolyn and John Bennett, who also live in, they live in Albuquerque, and asked them if they could do the same thing. But so far they haven't. Okay.
So what about your dad's side of the family?
Okay, on the dad's side of the family, it goes back to, I guess Charles Biddulph is the first one. That's how Woody got his first name, was from Charles. And then Nathan Biddulph. None of these people had more than a 5th grade education until my mother went to BYU. But one person did graduate from college, and that was Samuel Biddulph. And Samuel is Peter's middle name. And he was a mathematics teacher, just like Evan.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice.
What grades though?
In high school.
Okay.
Do you know if Charles Biddulph was baptized in England? I couldn't find out that information. Because he lived from 1804 until 1876. I think he's the one who came over to the United States, Charles Biddulph. And then his son Nathan, I believe, settled in, they call it Hupper.
Hupper, yes.
Hupper, Utah, which is like the north. It's on I-15 as you're heading north towards Idaho.
But it's towards the lake.
Yeah, on the lakeside. And I couldn't find out where Charles Biddulph was baptized. So I was just wondering if you knew.
I don't know.
Okay.
However, this is a book that my grandma put together, and let's see if she's. She concentrates on the Quibells, which are her family. Let's see if.
Your grandma Nellie Maria Quibell?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we knew her because when I was working in Dinosaur National Monument after my freshman year in college, I would go and visit with her. And she was maintaining her own house at 168 West 4th North, is where she, in Provo.
In Provo.
Yeah.
She lived until 1974.
Yeah, she was 93 years old, I think.
Wow.
94.
She was married to Samuel Biddulph, and one thing I can say about Samuel Biddulph, because I did some research on this, he was born in Hupper, and his father Nathan was a really poor farmer, like dirt poor, and he there's a letter that he wrote, and in which he described that leaving Hupper was like leaving prison almost, that he kind of escaped from Hupper. And he went on the road. He was like all across the United States, visiting places, and then he discovered this love of learning, and then he went to BYU, which I guess was not a university at that point. It was kind of an academy at that point, and became a professor at BYU. That's Samuel Biddulph, who is your grandfather.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and he had seven sons, and my father was the oldest of the 7 sons, and
What were the names of
well,
his brothers? And
okay, Roland, my father, was the oldest son. The next one was Lowell. Lowell ended up being the dean of students at Ricks College, but prior to that, he had been the athletic director there at Ricks College, and he had 4. Oh goodness, let's see. There's a. Lowell had a daughter, Barbara, that was deceased early in her life, and then he had Howard, who was the Howard was came to Rutgers in New Jersey and got his PhD in Russian studies, and then he went to the University of British Columbia and headed up the Department of Russian at the University of British Columbia, and then he was called to become the first mission president in the Ukraine. And he's still living, and the next son is inactive in the church. His name is David. He lives in North Carolina. We went out to visit with him. The next is Susan. She lives in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And the next one is Marilyn. And Marilyn was married to Clint Barris. Clint Barris was the head of the music department at BYU, but he died. And so now she has remarried and to someone by the name of Bradshaw. So she's Marilyn BBB, Marilyn Biddulph Barris Bradshaw. And the last of that family is Stephen. And Stephen was in the Marines, and when he left the Marines, he came back to teach ROTC at BYU, and then he became the dean of students at Southern Virginia University, sort of following in his father's footsteps. Okay, so that's Lowell's family. The next one is Orland, and Orland had a wife who died, and her name was Suzanne, and their child was named Stuart, and Stuart married to Betty Biddulph by the chance. So there's another Betty Biddulph.
Really?
Yeah. But we knew Stuart pretty well. Stuart has since died, and he lives in Provo. Now the next one is Floyd, and the only thing I know about Floyd, I don't know much about his children. I do know that he had a son, a son named Kent, who became a dentist and studied at the University of San Francisco. What is it?
It would be University of San